Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Get Real with Jack and Cindy. I'm Cindy Morrison.
And I'm Jack Wallace. Thank you for being here, and happy Fed Day. I guess it won't be by the time this airs, but today is Fed Day. So we're going to find out today if the federal government is going to cut the rate. Going to be exciting. We've been having this argument before it all started, what we think is going to happen. So like we have any insight into all that, but actually we are very lucky today to have one of the owners of our company, the second part of the name or the first part of the name, however you want to look at it. But Lee Cohen is with us, and we are so excited you're here, Lee. And now we can discuss the commercial side of the business, which is a lot of what you do as far as Chenoweth and Cohen. Cheryl has been mostly residential. God, I said retail. Yeah. Residential side, and you've done the commercial.
There's retail too.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So I was thinking retail as far as the federal number that was in my head. Anyway, so we're just really excited to have him here, and what we're going to basically do is we're going to try to go through some of just what exactly is commercial and some of the different categories and what are the trends right now, what's happening. And I think that it's really for people that do residential. There are some people who do both residential and commercial and are very successful at that.
But they're very different.
Very different, yeah. And the license is the same. Mm-hmm. You just need a real estate license to do either. But then you can get certifications in commercial that are very specific about how commercial works, which I do not have. I don't think you have.
No.
So anyway, so that's kind of the division that you oversee and that you came from beforehand, before starting Chenoweth and Cohen, correct?
Correct, I did. So I started, I've been doing commercial real estate for probably 35 or 40 years, a long time.
You started when you were 12.
Yeah, I started.
Yep.
And I did it in Miami, Florida. I started a REIT, which is a real estate investment trust, and took an IPO in the early 90s.
Ooh.
So
Miami in the 90s.
Yeah.
I can just imagine those stories. We may have a different podcast about that.
Yeah. Actually,
Miami Vice. Yeah.
I can tell you stories.
Look how ready he is. For those of you listening, he is bright red right now. Welcome to Get Real. All right, back on track. So the REIT.
So the REIT and was done in the early 90s and went public, and then I sold it, and then so I did commercial in Miami, which is, like you said, a different story. Then moved here and did commercial, and I'm actually do over the property management side of the company too, and I'm also the CFO. So
multi-hyphenate.
So I try and stay out of the residential as much as I can. So, and
Cheryl's fine with that.
I can tell you stories.
Stay in your lane. Stay in your lane.
When we first started the company, and I won't go off on a tangent too much, but we first started the company, I did a couple of residential deals, and I would call Cheryl and I would say, so I got this residential deal, and she's like, we actually, I would have to go to the bathroom and go to the stall where nobody could hear me. I don't know what to do with this deal.
It is so different. It is. Oh, it's so different. Well, you actually were the manager at Midtown for quite a while. So it is sort of funny because you were, about a year or two, I was the manager here.
I was the residential manager here. And I got
so you learned a lot. Yeah. From that to that, you did. So.
So anyway, so mostly on the commercial side, you don't have to have a separate license. So there are some designations that you do normally want to have if you're going to get involved in it. There are some agents that do both.
How hard is it to get those? Are they pretty difficult?
They're very difficult. It's probably the CCIM is the most difficult to get, and it's probably the equivalent of getting first year of an MBA.
Oh wow! Oh wow!
So I've got my MBA in total, but it's doing like the 101, 102, 103, and 104. They're all classes on management for commercial real estate, return on investments, internal rate of returns, cap rates, and things like that. So there's all types of mathematical formulas that you have to use to get to
Interesting.
how to figure out how to analyze commercial real estate.
And do you do that online, or is it something that you do in a class, or can you do either?
You can do both. Before the pandemic, you very rarely could do it online, but now you can do it online. And but the test, I think you have to do in person in Chicago.
Okay.
Okay.
So you have to fly up there. Well, actually, Chicago, Dallas, and California. You can do one of the three
Interesting.
different regions.
Okay.
But
So what all encompasses when you talk about commercial real estate?
so there's 5 or 6 different types of commercial real estate. There's multifamily, office, hotel, industrial, and retail.
Okay.
So
So
when
multifamily,
office,
hotel, industrial, and retail.
Yeah.
So it'd be like multiple living situation, where we go to work every day, where we stay when we're on vacation, where they make things, and then where they sell things.
That's it. Basically, yeah.
Nicely done. I
Yeah,
like
that's
that
very good.
Oh,
analogy.
yeah.
Perfect.
I can't think of residential.
Most of the time in other regions, commercial real estate agents are usually do one of those. They do.
Oh.
Very rarely does a commercial broker have the expertise to do all of them. So if you go to Miami, most of the time, if you want to do multifamily housing, you'll get a broker that specializes in just multifamily housing.
So like towers, residential towers or
high-rise
rises,
living
yeah.
and so forth and so on, but all rentals, not
Yeah.
condos. Or you do office, or you do hotels. I mean,
So if it goes condo, then it goes to residential. If it's for rental and one investor is buying the building, let's say, then that would be considered a commercial.
if
is that the
they're buying the
distinction?
whole, yes, basically,
okay.
yeah.
Okay.
And hotels are a whole nother anomaly. Hotels are, you have to learn, because the financing in hotels is different, and everything about hotels is different.
When you got from the Motel 6 to, a luxury resort in
Ritz's.
Hawaii. Yeah.
Well, now you have Airbnb portfolios, which is kind of in that same
Oh, yeah.
interesting. Yeah.
And I haven't included that because I'm not. It's just an Airbnbs are an anomaly, and most of them are either bought by really big companies and they have like hundreds of units, or it's just an individual person who has one or two.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, and they're very difficult to manage, which I can probably talk about a little bit later on, because I can cover property management in a brief period of time. But so multifamily housing would be anywhere from 1 to 4 to 10, 20, 100, 200 units. And it has to do with all rentals.
Okay.
So so they're all like some of the bigger players here in Tulsa, a Case, Lineback, and so forth and so on. So some of those are pretty big players here in town. That market right now is pretty much at its peak because of the cost to build.
Mm-hmm.
Rental rates are coming down. They were at peak. Now they're coming back down. And it's causing the values to change, which we'll talk about in a minute. But so a lot of multifamily housing has slowed down in the last 2 or 3 years in reference to building.
Plus, they've been building so much at one time, and they were building so many of those big luxury complexes.
Like this one here. I can't think of the name of it, right across the street here. But they're all,
And
they
the
were,
Cosmopolitan downtown, is it Cosmopolitan? Something like that.
yeah, there's a few going in, but they're probably gonna peak out right now, because for many reasons, like one, the cost to build, the rental rates will have to go up, and there's no demand to keep the rental rates up because of the market right now. So they're stabilizing. The average rental rate here in Tulsa is probably in the low 90s or upper 80s, which is really good. So probably 92% occupancy rates is what you're talking about here.
Oh, okay.
Tulsa is a very good market in reference to multifamily housing, industrial, and retail, and also mini storages too, which I didn't include now.
Mini storages are popping up everywhere.
Yeah.
People love their stuff.
That and
Yeah.
car washes, they're on every corner.
So a lot of the car washes are being owned by car dealers.
Interesting.
So, which I didn't know about until I sat on a bank board.
Aha.
So,
And my cousin owns a Ford dealership and a car wash, so that's fine.
There you
go.
Case in point.
so But anyway, so multifamily housing in a nutshell is for the overall is doing well, stabilizing, not much more being built due to the cost to build them and due to the net operating income that is dropping, and the valuations are going to drop a little bit. So the banks are probably maxed out on what they can loan here on a regional basis on multifamily housing.
Not to mention the competition now that there's so many units that have been built in the last 10 years.
Right.
I mean, yeah, it's been a lot of development in that.
And office is really taking a hit. So
Everywhere, right? I mean, that's a national.
So that has to do with the
work from
pandemic.
home.
I was going to say COVID, people started working from home and decided they liked it and they could save money. And yeah, interesting.
So
But the businesses want them back in the office.
But they do. But the problem
they have
is
to
that
keep the
most
talent.
people who own office space they're cutting back their office space. They want them back, but they're cutting back the space they're leasing. So,
Interesting.
Because
Okay.
you still have some people that want to work from home 1 or 2 days a week.
Oh, so a company that
So-
used to have 1,000 square feet may want 800 square feet because they only have so many people come in at one time. We're used to everybody was in
Shifting
every
things
day
around.
all the time.
Mhm.
That makes sense. So they still come in 3 days a week instead of 5 days a week, and they rotate around. Okay, that makes sense.
And because of the pandemic and because of what's happened in reference to office space, you're going to see a lot of office space go under. So
Interesting.
Tulsa hasn't been hit that hard yet, but New York, San Francisco, Miami, Dallas, they've all been hit really hard on office space.
I was just in New York, and a lot of the offices are being converted to residential in Manhattan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's millions and millions of square feet in Manhattan right now available that was office. That's probably going to be flipped to residential.
I also just read recently that they started doing a lot of that, and then they realized it was actually cheaper to tear the buildings down
in some cases.
and to build it as a
to
new,
retrofit.
yeah, because it was so expensive to retrofit them. Yeah.
But a lot of banks are holding back on giving loans to office space.
Wow.
So that's.
So you really think that's a long-term trend that we're going to go more towards less in office?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
before that market turns around, I think we're 4 or 5 years out.
Which is so interesting. And I mean, in some ways, so sad. I mean, like, we really are. It's good because people have some more flexibility to travel and do things, but in the same, we're just getting a little bit more isolated and more isolated. Yeah.
Single tenant users, I think, will be strong, like doctors' offices, where it's a one building,
Mhm.
single
And they
tenant
have to be there
users.
to do their job.
Yeah, that will stay strong. But 10, 20,000 square foot spaces, I think they're going to take a big hit.
Yeah.
So hotels, I mean, I know in Tulsa right now, there will be no more hotels built. I would be shocked. And not to mention,
We
they're
seemed pretty
probably-
saturated in hotels for a while there. We didn't.
We
You
could
had,
use some new ones, though. I'm
Yeah.
just saying we could. I mean, I'm sorry,
we
but
need
what
to
we
take
got,
the
we
old
need.
out.
Oh my gosh, yeah. But we could use some nice hotels. That's just my opinion. Maybe it's not my professional opinion.
They got to be filled.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
So, I mean, like the Mayo Clinic, I think just underwent a renovation, if I'm correct.
The Mayo Clinic.
Mayo Hotel.
Mayo Hotel.
Well, is there something
That's
we need to
what-
talk about that I don't know about?
It's a faux pas.
That's our age.
Yeah.
When we think Mayo, we think clinic.
And a lot of people live there full time. They, not necessarily all of it is hotel.
I think the top like 2 or 3 floors are residential. I'm not
Okay.
sure, but
Which I think that's kind of a cool new sort of that hotel living without, it's kind of cool. I like it.
I think it is a great lifestyle. But they're not going to get loans locally.
Okay,
So
that makes sense.
Yeah, so the hotel market is pretty much saturated. I
Okay.
don't know of any big hotel names that are coming into town right now, but the occupancy rate in hotels, the last I checked, were in the mid 80s or
Oh,
low
wow.
80s. So that's at like 82, 83%. So it's hard to cash flow when you're in the low 80s on hotels.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it really is.
It does seem what has been built recently would be more like in that kind of mid-tier. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I mean, there have been a little bit of those just kind of small pop-up mid-tier hotels.
Those are the
around
ones
town.
that I was
Yeah.
thinking at this saturation point, because it used to be you just had your big hotels, and now they're in Jinx or
Yeah.
in the middle of close to neighborhoods. You'll see a lot of those.
And they're nice. I mean, they're not.
mid ones, yeah.
Industrial is doing really well. So industrial would be, either manufacturing, or it would be like 80% or 70% manufacturing and like 30% office.
Are we talking about industrial nationally, or are we talking locally?
Tulsa, well, both actually. Both
Okay.
are doing really well. So you'll see a lot of,
Because we are a big manufacturing
Mhm.
center. Yeah.
we are, and you're going to start to see a lot of data centers going out.
Here?
And throughout the whole country.
Yeah.
There is one in, I think Google did one not too far from here. Amazon tried to come here. That didn't work out for whatever reason. But those are all data centers, and those are really, really good.
And
Like
they got to
more-
go where the power is, though.
Yeah.
They need a big power structure.
Yeah, so you're talking, not like
We
a
could do
call center, but more of a data center where they're housing that
All the AI
the
stuff.
cloud stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Computers, which
Gotcha.
means they're built really high end.
Hmm.
So there's a lot of good electric, air conditioning, HVAC. The buildings are built really tightly, security wise.
Yeah.
So those buildings are really, really good buildings. Granted, they have a very, very the usage for them is very, very restricted, but their leases are really long term.
I've also heard that
So,
they're starting to
yeah.
try to build them near like where oil and gas is refined, or where nuclear is available, so that they can tap right into the source, so that they can be right by the energy. It's interesting. It's a very interesting. All this is so interesting how everything is changing. Like less people in the office, more AI, more technology, more data driven. I mean, all of it kind of relates to the trend and where we're heading, right? I mean,
Good piece of financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but good. There are REITs that actually will do data centers only.
I may or may not own some.
I may or may not be buying some.
and power.
I do not have a securities license, so I'm not.
And power, and I need a lot of power.
All the
Yeah.
disclaimers
Yeah,
here,
yeah.
but hey, listen up, folks.
I read the Wall Street Journal every day.
Yeah, and it's
So-
interesting because it's like the picks and shovels,
Mhm.
and that's what we're talking about. This is picks and shovels, and that's what they call any kind of portfolio and stock where it's not the glamour stuff, it's the actual picks and shovels to get the gold out of the mine, basically. So what are those? And data centers would be kind of a picks and shovel of the upcoming AI technology, correct? Or current technology.
And I would think it would be cheaper to build here than it would be on the coasts.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
The
So
price per square foot is way cheaper here.
my friend Mick Cornett wrote a book. He was the mayor of Oklahoma City for a very long time, but and I can't think of the title of it. I'll put it in the description. But it was all about, everybody was going to the coasts.
Right.
Now the trend of the coasts coming here because they realize they can, join the country club. Their kids can go to public
Quality of
school.
life.
Quality of life. And so you're seeing that resurgence where they're
Plus, they
moving
can work
back
for
to these
companies on the
areas.
coast,
Mhm.
but do it from home here. I mean, it's
Yes.
kind of been the whole thing.
And he wrote this before the pandemic.
So we may lose
Oh,
office
yeah.
space in Tulsa, but are we gaining residential? Are we gaining some people because they had that flexibility with where they can work? Yeah, it's interesting.
Or you're going to see like offices and homes are being built bigger, I would assume.
Mhm.
So you're going to have, because if they're going to work at home, they're going to have bigger spaces for offices.
See, I can't work at home because I do laundry or pet the dogs. I need to go to the office.
That's why I keep telling our staff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, I would love it if people, but I mean, are you really as efficient when you're not? You're just not. And I think that's where the companies want the people to come back because of that factor. But the people now are like, I'll go work for somebody else. So
It's true.
we're kind of in that.
It's a
If
75.
the economy went down and employment became different, this could shift back, right? I mean, it could.
It's working at home. Your production, your percentage of production from working at home has dropped when you leave the office, like 25 to 30%.
Drops that
Drop. So in other words, if they're working 100% in the office, they're working 70 to 75% at home.
Interesting.
Yeah, and that is a
You always talk
hard
about the
fact.
magic
Yeah.
of the office,
Yeah.
I wanted to mention, I've got Mick's book here. It's called,
I know Nick.
yeah,
Yeah.
the next American city, the big promise of our mid-sized metros.
Mhm.
And I mean, wrote that and it came out in 2008. I don't have my glasses on, 2018. So, just very interesting that we see this trend even more so since COVID. And we're back.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's good. And I think the national trends are interesting because we used to kind of, as a city, we would look at the national trends and say, well, that's them, that's not us. But everything is moving so much more across the board. Like everybody is, even, I was reading an article, with the performing arts part that I do, accents are going away. We're becoming the same. We all speak the same now in our accents because we watch all the same TV, the same internet. So everyone's learning to speak more the same. We just have less country accents, left New York. I mean, it is sort of interesting how the country is becoming a lot more homogenized, and it's affecting all of this. I mean, we are becoming more like the coast used to be, and they're becoming more like we were. So anyways, back on track.
So it's my New York accent gone? It's just still there.
It's a little there.
Okay.
But, it's funny because I always say,
I can understand you. That's the good thing.
I
Yeah.
told Chris, I go, I have a little bit of accent. She goes, a little bit? I'm like,
As soon as
okay.
you said all the accents are going, becoming homogenized, I'm like,
But, we used to talk like this when I was growing up here.
I
You
was
don't
listening to you
now.
too. I had to learn to get rid of all that when I went into news. I look back at my first newscast and it's like, thanks, Ben. And I'm like, oh my gosh. How was I ever hired?
Gotta wash the dishes.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, so,
so next topic is retail.
okay.
So Tulsa is really an anomaly in retail compared to the rest of the country.
In what way?
And we are very, very strong. I was really worried about the Simon coming in and would they have enough rooftop to hold the tenants and have the
It's
sales.
so
and
nice. Have you been there?
I've not.
It is like you're in
Yeah.
Palm Springs. I mean, it is really well done. I'm really impressed with what they've.
I'm waiting to go on like an early morning
It's
when the
packed.
kids are in
I don't
school.
care.
Yeah, when it's not so
what?
busy.
I love it. I want to go and see it. I just love seeing that happening in Tulsa.
Yeah.
I'm not
It's
allowed to
great.
shop right now.
And they're nice
because
stores.
We moved. From
Oh, yeah.
that, so I'm not allowed to bring anything home.
Oh, I hate your life. Bless your heart. That's got to be so hard for you.
Cheryl, I hope you're
I'm not
watching.
allowed to shop because I don't have any money.
That's right. You say, and honey, I love you.
Anyways,
Right,
we'll go someday.
there you go. And we pass it every day we go to work now because we moved.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
So they brought in 75 retailers, just some statistics.
How many do they employ? It's got to be
800. They
Wow.
employ 800 people.
That's
I knew you would
amazing.
ask that question. So I got
Yeah.
that. 20,000 square feet is a children's play area,
It's
which
nice.
is cool. And they took a total of 330,000 square feet for the total mall.
Okay.
So again, 75 retailers, 800 workers, and the mall's doing well. Now remember, the city worked out a deal where they
City
had a
of
TIF.
Jinx.
worked out a
Even though it's
deal.
the Tulsa Outlet Mall, it's the City of Jinx.
Tulsa County, City of Jinx worked
So
out
it's
a
the Tulsa
deal.
County. It's the Tulsa. Okay, got it.
City of Jinx worked out a TIF deal where I don't think they have to pay taxes for either 8 or 10 years. So, but they
Wait,
did all-
so the retailers don't pay sales tax, or the mall doesn't pay
the
property
mall,
taxes?
so usually malls so there's two ways to look at it. So they
Okay.
don't have to pay any taxes to the city for 8 to 10 years on that real estate.
on the real estate.
They're paying tax to the state, but they don't have to pay taxes to the city of Jinx, I think, for 8 or 10 years, I believe
Okay.
it is. And that's TIF.
So they're betting on the long haul. Mhm.
So,
But the retailers have to pay the sales tax to everybody.
right.
So it is generating tax income for the city, but not the equivalent on what they would on property tax.
To the state, not the city.
They don't
The
even
city
pay
doesn't
sales
have
tax to
the
the
city
state.
doesn't have a sales tax. The state does. It's of 8.5%.
Hmm.
So that goes to the state, and I don't think the city's getting anything out
They
of
get
it
some
at
of
this
it.
point.
Yeah,
It's a small portion.
it's a
if
small
they do
portion,
it,
but
yeah.
The interesting thing is Oklahoma is one of the few states, at least this has been in the past, unless something's changed. But that's why each city wants you to shop in their city, because that sales tax runs the city government.
Yeah.
It doesn't run schools
It's
or
a small
fire
part of
or
that, but it
police.
does. Yeah.
Yeah. So when the Pioneer Woman, made Pawhuska what it is, they have a lot more money for the city.
So
to
it's
do
like
more
the new thing
improvements.
with this, with the grocery tax. We don't pay the grocery tax to the state, but we pay the local.
Mhm.
So you still pay it's 4%. So it's like 4.5%, I think, to the city and county. Yeah. It's
So if the
interesting.
city doesn't entice people to shop there, and you live in Broken Arrow, but you go into Tulsa to do all your shopping, you're not supporting your local city government in Broken Arrow.
Interesting.
So
We just got in the weeds there, but then yeah.
So when Owasso built the farm,
Mm-hmm.
so that was their deal. Kind of what Simon deal did. They struck a deal with the city of Owasso. I'm sure there was a TIF deal where they don't have to pay taxes or real estate taxes or anything for 8 years.
8 and 10 years is a blink of an eye for the city.
Yeah,
I mean, that's
exactly.
such a great, that's a good deal.
But
as long as they hold up to their end,
Yeah.
which they have so far.
They give them money for the development for like the utilities, and they do that up front, and for that they waive taxes owed to them for a while so they can recoup. So there's kind of deal making going on. But
Okay.
but yeah, it's I mean it's very successful right now. So and Simon's a good company.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So
speaking of REITs,
yeah, they're very good.
And they have
really well.
Woodland Hills Mall too, correct?
And now you've got
Unless
Shields
I'm-
going in there, which is
Yeah.
huge. I mean, that's humongous. Yeah.
What is it? I don't even know what that is.
It's kind of like outdoor sportsman. It's kind of like a Dick's Sporting Good, but like kind of a Bass Pro Shop approach to it.
Yeah, Bass Pro would be the one that I think of, although it's more sports oriented than
Interesting.
Yeah.
So those are the 5 categories. Then one I didn't mention, which is mini storages. So mini storages are really hot too right now. But they're, and by the way, the banks are loaning money on industrial and retail. Hotels are not, office are not. Multifamily is very speculative, depending how strong the landlord is or the guy that's buying it. So, but they're going to be, the valuations are going to come down on all commercial. So what's happening, just to give you an overall, we'll go back to
mini storage.
Mini storage. So mini storages are doing very well now, especially air conditioned ones. So because they're hot, but they're when you sell mini storages, or even as a seller or buyer, you're not selling the real estate, you're selling the business. And most people don't know that. So when you sell mini storages and you have a 4x4, you're actually selling the 4x4 unit, the rental income on that 4x4 unit.
So you build up the business and then sell it as like an already existing profitable business.
Yeah. So the ones that I've done,
interesting.
So you sell, you have your 2 P&Ls. You've got your real estate, and then you've got your mini storage, and then the mini storage is a business.
Profit and loss.
So depending how many units are leased, is how you value the property. The real estate is valued, but it's usually less.
Because if no one's renting it, then it's really not of any value.
Right.
Interesting. So then, what would be the normal holding period for a company to build up before they would sell, typically? Like a year, 2 years?
Oh, I'll bet you 5 or 10 years.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So it takes a while to build that to where it shows it's ongoing. And think about it. It's kind of like when they get you to do the online payment, like all those subscription, and then you never cancel it. And I mean, like, it's the same thing. I know people have those mini storage and they've never visited, and they pay $200 a month and they never ever go.
I have it.
And then you go and it's all like mouse and
I have staging stuff in there, and I probably haven't been there in a year. It's probably time.
We do it.
Put that in garage sale.
We've got stuff from a house Cheryl will put in there for a future office, and we'll keep it in there. We pay $200-300 a month, and it just sits there. And but here's the thing: you don't pay. They just change the locks.
Well, I have a friend who used to buy. He'd go and do the auctions and buy the stuff and then sell the stuff. But I'm like, oh, I mean, going through all that. There's a part of it that's kind of cool, but it's like maybe you find something really great. But I'm sure a lot of times it's just people's stuff they just didn't want to. They didn't know what to do with, or grandma.
That's a whole other business.
That's right. When I worked for Charles Badre, when a woman said, "Oh, I can't get rid of that, Charles. It's my grandmother or my mother's." And he goes, "Your mother's dead."
Cheryl,
let it go.
We're going to call you about that. We're going through that right now.
So if you didn't want to deal with mom's death, you can put it in the mini storage until you can deal with that. Yeah.
But yeah, so if people don't pay, they change the lock, And then now what they do is when they have to, after a while, they've got to go ahead and make an inventory, and they can sell the stuff that's in there, but you've got to post it in the newspapers or stuff like that. But yeah, it's not like an eviction.
Yeah. Well, it is. Yeah. Because they went. Yeah.
Different. So, so retail's doing really well in Tulsa, and nationally it's doing pretty good too. And banks are making loans on that.
So back up one little bit, just so I'm clear. So some of this is you're selling real estate, but you also are honestly you're selling businesses quite a bit, right? Because if an office has tenants in it, you're selling the office building, but you're also transferring the leases would transfer over to the new owner.
Right.
So they would be buying, like the mini storage, they're sort of buying, or multifamily if they're occupied. You are sort of buying the business and the real estate.
No, you're only buying the real estate. We're not allowed to sell businesses.
But it's probably worth more.
But the valuations are created based on how many tenants are in each office.
So that's interesting. So it's more of a cash flow than a business that you're getting.
So valuations on commercial real estate, on all of them except mini storages, are based on, well, mini storages to some degree too, but anyway, they're just valued differently. But they're all done based on what's called cap rates.
Yeah.
Which is how many tenants are in, how much income is in each unit.
Mm-hmm.
And then what is the gross income less the expenses, which gives you your net operating income. And then your net operating income is how you value the real estate. So you have a cap rate. So you take your
so what you're cash flowing would basically be the net, like after everything is paid off, the cash you have at the end of the month. Okay.
Excluding mortgages and taxes, but for the most part, it's your cap rate or your valuation is based on net operating income, and then your net operating income is based on what the market cap rate is, which would be in Tulsa right now. It's mostly 8 or 9%. So depending what it is, you'd figure out what your sales price would be based on the cap rate being divided by the net operating income.
So when you're saying cap rate, that's the capitalization rate, correct?
Right, which is kind of equivalent to the rate of return on money.
So it's like saying an 8 or 9 year return basically on that amount? Is that
no, the year's return is 8 or 9%.
8 or 9%.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So is Tulsa on most of these that I've gone through have an 8 or 9% cap rate.
Okay. So you can assume on a yearly basis you're talking about 8 or 9% cap rate. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's a decent investment. I mean, that's
I mean, I've shown I own, when we started the company, we bought a lot of the buildings that we own. And so they, of course, Lee Cohen rents them, so I know I'm going to get paid.
Right.
So, but
like the stock market, 1 year you may make a lot in rent, and then you may have a big vacancy the next year. And I mean, so you're looking at kind of 8 or 9 over a time period with an ebb and flow formulation.
Yeah, basically.
Okay.
So moving along and putting those aside for now, and I will say one thing, there's a lot of residential agents that want to do commercial. And so all of you that are out there that want to do that, I say no. We have a handful. There's one in this building that does it. Sean Peters, who's really good at it.
But she also came from that background too.
She did. She understands it. So, but we tell most residential agents do not do it if they haven't done it in the past, because what happens is if they wind up losing their residential business. So because commercial takes so much time.
So it's basically like starting a new business. I mean, a new job or new, path.
So that's why we tell everybody, if you haven't done commercial in the past, don't do it. Hand it off to a residential agent, to a commercial agent, take a referral fee. It's like mailbox money and move on.
Right.
And then that person is a certified professional who knows exactly how so they're representing your people in the best possible way. Where are you the best? Now, if you want to get into it, there certainly are good things about it, but you need to do it the right way and get the education, go down that path.
And different things like soil samples, and just all the different things that go into depending on what type of commercial property it is.
Yeah. I've done deals where I've had agents call me who have said they wanted to do commercial, and like to your example, if it's land and they want to put a building on it, they have to do an environmental on it. And I'll have a residential agent will call me and say, well, what's an environmental, or what's a phase 1 and what's a phase 2?
They're going in the bathroom like you.
Sure.
Payback. Remember that. Whenever they're calling, you remember yourself in the bathroom going, Cheryl, what do I do?
It's true. But phase 1, phase 2, all these things that are out there that most residential agents don't know. So that's why we say stay away from it, let us handle it. But, so anyway, and the loans are different. Analyzing the loan, I haven't covered land in this because.
And the amount of time till you get paid is different too. I mean, like you work differently than we are used to working as far as compensation, how long a project can take before you have a payday. I mean,
instead of 30 days, it could be 2 years.
I mean, it's a more 9 to 5, which I think a lot of people like that idea, but it's definitely a different system than we're used to.
How we started too.
No, I remember that. So you'd be grilling and she'd be, I'm showing houses while you're grilling. That's what was happening.
5:30. What are you doing? I'm grilling.
And we're a 50-50 partner. Wait a minute.
You're grilling steaks at 5:30, and I'm out showing homes till 10.
Yeah.
They weren't married when they started the company. I mean, so that was he would be at his house grilling already at 5:30, and she's like, I just started showing houses.
You have a really good memory.
I do. It's awful.
Oh my gosh. So that's why we say stay in your lane, let residential do residential and commercial do commercial, and refer it out.
So then, okay, so in housing, we keep saying that this is not 2008 because we're not having the delinquencies because people are sitting on low interest rates and they are staying employed. So how is this panning out for the commercial side on all of these things with the economy changes and with the interest rate changes?
It's a really good question. So you're going to see a lot in all of these categories. You're going to see what's called loan modifications. So what that means is
because they're all coming due based on how many years
due, and the cap rates or the NOIs that they used 4, 5, 6, 7 years ago are going to be completely different as opposed to what they are now, which is going to change the valuation. So as an example, multifamily housing. So if you have a multifamily housing that's coming due in the next 12 months, the bank is going to look at it and go, okay, number one, is he paying? Number two, what is the occupancy rate? Number three, what is the rental rates for each of those, units, 1s, 2, and 3s?
Okay.
And then they're going to look at it and say, okay, if the cap rate or if the cap rate's off and if the net operating income is not what it should be, then they're going to do an appraisal probably. And then when they do an appraisal, they might find that it's not what it was, and they're going to require what's called an equity infusion.
Okay.
So if if the property's worth $1 million and when you bought it and it's now worth $800,000, you only paid $100,000, they're going to ask you to bring another $100,000 to the table.
Ouch.
And if you don't do that, here's where it's going to get tricky.
Okay.
If you don't do it or can't afford it, then they will force you to do that, or they're going to have to move that asset to a what they call a different category of the banking side. So banks are out, they do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 as far as what the
So it's like getting a
ratings
downgrade
are
in your credit rating kind of a thing.
So they'll move that to, let's say, a 3 instead of out of a 5.
Okay.
So if they get audited and the bank sees that they have too many 3s or 2s, and the bank's going to say, you need to call that client and tell them you need to put more money in and get it to a 1, let's say.
Interesting. So I have a question, just going on what we're talking about, just for clarity. So what you're saying is, when they originally got the loan, and now it's due. So what is the length of a typical commercial loan then that they would come due like this? A 30-year is a residential, so you have a long time before you have to deal with. You pay it off at the end of the 30 years. but these are like an arm kind of a thing.
So they're either fixed or rate adjusted.
Okay.
So usually, I could spend like hours on this and
Yeah.
love it, but I know we only have a short period of time. But so commercial loans are done usually on a either a 5, 7, or 10-year schedule,
Okay.
and they're done either fixed or adjustable.
And they're going 5, 7, 10 because commercial changes so much that they don't want to lock in. Like a 30-year is a way that we can digest it as individual citizens on a big number. But for businesses, they want to readjust or get payoffs 5, 7, 10 years, because if a neighborhood changes completely and that building is no longer a function, they don't want to be stuck in it with your money. Is that correct?
Basically, I mean, if you have like 5 years ago, if you had a commercial loan at 3.5% and it has a 5-year term, they'll do 10, 15, and 20-year amortizations. They'll be very flexible with you on amortization schedules.
Mhm.
So you can do let's say you had a 3.5% loan, 5 years due, okay, and then a 20-year amortization schedule.
Okay.
So you can pay the loan within the 5 years with a 20-year am, but it's due in full at the end of 5 years.
Interesting.
And the reason they do that,
Because you're hoping the building will value by then.
no, the banks do it. The banks force you to do it because if the banks have too many loans, because remember, commercial loans are bigger than residential.
Oh.
And if they have too many loans that are below prime rate, then they run into trouble with the Fed.
And that allows them to clean their books
And then
up.
basically it allows them to readjust.
And this is why you need to get a degree in doing this.
Yeah.
No, that's so
I
fascinating.
can see why it's like getting your MBA, going through all the courses to learn this.
But that's interesting. So it's basically, I mean, in some ways it's very different than residential, but in some ways they've also sort of made it similar to residential for businesses, but they have to understand what's actually at stake in a 5-year period. Now, it also is great because if the money goes down, if the interest rates go down, like whenever somebody was sitting on, let's say, an 8 or a 7, and then it went down to 2.5% and 3%, that was a really good thing. But then those people locked in, and now they're coming due. So that's what we keep saying, they're coming due now off of the low rates.
So what happens? That's a good question. So what happens is if the interest rates were at like 8 or 10% and the rates start to come down, and there's no prepayment penalty, usually the client will go to the bank and say, I want to refinance it. And the banks, most of the time, will do it if there's no prepayment penalty. If the market rates are coming down, but nobody will go to the bank and say, I want to refinance it, I want a higher interest rate.
Right.
Yeah, it's
So the
interesting.
banks will do that. So that's why you have to be so like on a lot of the buildings that we did fixed rates.
Mhm.
So let's say, we did 5%. Okay. And let's say it was originally 4%. The bank comes back, or 4.5%, and the bank says, if you want to fix, I'll give it to you for 5%.
Okay.
So you pay the extra 0.5 point during that time.
But it doesn't have to be adjusted.
It doesn't have to be adjusted. If it goes down, you're stuck with it. If it goes up, the bank's stuck with it.
Okay.
So it can work either way. And Cheryl was actually the one, she was really good on that. So let's just stick with fixed rates and let's just go with it.
So at least you know what you're looking at.
Right.
Right. But if you go with adjustables,
It's the non-gambler way to do it. Yeah, no, it makes sense.
So, and most of the time banks will not give you 10 or 15-year notes.
Okay.
They'll do 5, 7, and 10-year notes, and they all become due. And this is what's happening in office, as an example.
Wow.
A lot of these notes are coming due in the next year or two.
And they're sucking eggs already, and now they're going to have to be hit.
They got those notes at 4.5%. Now it's 6, 7% for banks.
So we should see delinquencies go up on a lot of office space coming up.
Well, office space loans, they're going to start to go up. Or you're going to see a lot of banks take back properties and have to be forced to sell it because they're going to have to move it to the other side of the bank. So
Oh,
the
interesting.
banks don't want property moved to the wrong side of the bank, because then it creates a problem for them. And then the Fed comes in and starts auditing all their files, and says, you need to do something with this.
Right.
That's fascinating, though. I mean,
And
it
then
is
they get in the
interesting.
business selling business or the real estate
Yeah.
business.
But it
Instead of
is
making-
interesting. It's like you always say in your class about going into your bank to cash your checks and to do things so you get to know bankers. And like this is the area where it's really sort of important, even if you're a small business person and you want to start looking into eventually using banks for money, you really need somebody that you can trust, because there's a lot of different ins and outs that they could put in front of you, and it sounds good, but then you could really write yourself into something you don't want to be in.
And they're going to take care of the people they know probably
And
first.
they do.
Mhm.
Trust me, I sit
Yeah.
on these boards, and the people that over communicate, the people that send the financial statements in on time, the people that send their tax returns in on time, the people that let the banks know what's going on and communicate with them are going to go to the top of the list. The guys that don't communicate, are they're going to go to the bottom of the list.
Mhm.
They're going to be the ones that say, I'm not going to renew it. Go to another bank. I mean, I saw
Putting your head in the sand is not a good.
Yeah.
And I speak from
That is not a
experience.
strategy.
I speak from experience. I did that at one time in my life, and it did not pay off. But you have to be out there letting people work with you,
Mhm.
so they don't work against you.
I have seen institutions work with people who are having serious problems,
Yeah.
but if they communicate with them and they tell them what's going on, the bank will work with them, because if the bank has to answer to the Fed, then they can say, I'm working with this guy, he's done this, he's given me
Here's
this.
correspondence and due
Mhm.
diligence.
Right.
Yeah.
But if they got their head in the sand,
Mhm.
the bank has no choice but to foreclose or do whatever. So it's a whole.
Wow.
I always say this in every class.
Yeah.
You need to know who your bankers are, and even if you don't have a big account, go into the teller,
Mhm.
or say hi to a banking officer, or do something and let somebody know who you are, because everybody banks on their phone. They make their deposits on their phone,
Yeah.
which is okay. I do it too, but I also have lunch with my bankers once a quarter. I call them up. I let them know what's going on. I make sure that they don't have to call me for tax returns, profit loss statements, balance sheets. We send everything in, so nobody's got it. And they love that.
Which, by the way, Lee has agreed to do a 4-part series with us where we're going to cover all the things that he covers in that class, which is
It's one of the best classes I have.
it
been
really,
to.
and it changed.
Yeah.
It changed for me. What it really changed was I went from being a worker to being a business, because we make money, but the only thing is that we make money as we work. Having your money, learning to make your money work for you, and how quickly over time you sit back and go, oh my gosh, what a difference in what my accounts look like when you do it that way. So we're really excited about that, and it'll be really informative. So then when it comes down to the office space and all that, the good news is that we're not like where we were before in, like, say 2008, where everything was depressed and going delinquent. We're talking about some very specific parts of the market commercially that might run into some issues coming up.
Correct. Yeah, and there would be office, hotel. Most of the other markets are doing really well.
Mm-hmm.
I love that retail's doing well.
Yeah.
And obviously we know why.
Exactly.
Sorry, Todd.
You got to answer to Cheryl. I got to answer to Todd. Yeah.
Yeah, I answer to my 3 dogs.
There are 3 areas that are coming about. I wanted to start off for 2 seconds.
Okay.
And one is that there is the media. Some people are putting a fearmonger out in relation.
Damn
to,
media.
You're the problem.
I know.
Not anymore.
Credit card delinquencies are up. Credit card, car, and home delinquencies are up 9%.
Which would make sense. I mean, if everything's getting more expensive and your interest rates are so high on credit cards, eventually you can't meet that. You got to pay for your basics, and you don't have the room to pay your debt.
But what's happening is that's usually an indicator of a potential problem of an economy.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I don't know where that's going and what's going to happen with that. But right now, I feel that the economy is, the fear of recession right now is overstated.
Mhm.
So I think we're good for a while, and I think that the economic growth is going to be stronger than what was expected, at least for the next 12 months.
And let's be
my
honest,
opinion.
we closed the world down for a long time, which I know that's controversial, but we did, and it happened, whatever your feeling on that is. And then we also put a whole lot of money out there for people to survive, but we flooded a lot of money into I mean, we have gone through some of the most unbelievable things that we may never go through for 100 years, and may not in our lifetime again, hopefully. But the fact that we are coming out of it the way we're coming out of it is sort of crazy that it's going as well as you're saying. But it is funny that we're like now with the price of things going up and people over time using credit to survive, and like we're starting to see that, but it's taken a long time to get there, honestly, hasn't it?
It has, and I know I'm not as worried about it. I mean, I know it's out there, and I think part of the dilemma is, so before 2008 hit, we saw an increase in credit card delinquencies, home delinquencies, and car delinquencies. So
2008 was horrible.
Mhm.
But all of the indicators that were there, okay, are enough to put a lot of fear into economists.
Sure.
But one thing that's not there right now is we don't have that sub market regarding housing.
Yep.
And people, regarding loans. We had that 2006, 7, 8. We had all these loans going out to people that actually didn't qualify for loans, and they were selling them off. Wall Street was selling them off and burying them where nobody could see them, so to speak. And then until they started to come due, the whole market collapsed. So that's the sector of the market I don't see.
We almost have an
right now.
opposite issue, don't we, Lee? Because what happened really was the interest rates went so low that people locked in to 30-year mortgages on low interest rates instead of, so it's kind of the opposite with the subprime they were in, houses they couldn't afford at much, much higher rates. And then when it all fell apart, they just couldn't maintain. So,
Which is why homeowners weren't selling their homes for a while too.
yeah. Oh, no,
Just
it's been
inventory
good and
issue.
bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the market, for sure.
So I know my time is probably cut soon,
Yeah,
but I have, so this is a report that I get from the Fed that comes out. So anybody who's involved with banks, whatever, they can call the Fed and get on a Fed call. So I wasn't on the call, but I have the notes associated with it. I'm more than happy to leave it with you guys if you want to read it.
Oh, I'll read
Because
it.
it is very, very interesting.
I'll tell you all about it.
Yeah. Please give me the clip notes. Thanks.
It has these charts and supply
Oh, I
and
love
demand
this.
and implications. And I mean, it's real. I paperclip some of the areas, travel outlooks, because travel outlook does affect, the
Oh,
economy.
I love all this.
And there's a wealth of information here from CoStar in relation to the Tulsa economy, local level.
It's been so interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, it's so interesting. Like when you start really standing back and looking at, economics was like the worst class for me in college, and now I would eat it up with a spoon.
Well, and that we can get all this information. I mean, think about selling commercial property in the 70s or 80s, the boom during the 80s before the bust. Not having that information, not really knowing what's going on at a local level or a national level.
That's true because of all of these IT companies and where we are technologically, so to speak. We now have access to all of this information, and we can kind of, in the past, somebody would have to mail this to somebody. Now we could go online and find it. And you can find out a lot quicker where the interest rates are going and so forth and so on. So, I mean, it's
That's
you
great.
can almost by the hour find out where everything is going and see, what, the prime rate is doing and so forth and so on.
You just have to be careful not to get statistical paralysis.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, because it is sort of,
Yeah.
I think it's interesting though, too, like what I keep watching now that, you've got me for 10 years now watching the financial, that's all, I don't even need cable. I just need MSNBC. I mean, CNBC, like I just watch it like crazy. But the thing that's so interesting is, first of all, how macro everything is. Like it does come down to all the things we talked about earlier about the pandemic and working from home and why all of it is based on how society is moving, what the needs are, like with AI. all that, and that comes back to how it comes down, and then how it affects all of the things we're talking about when it comes down to the loans and the defaults. I mean, it's not as complicated as everybody thinks, but in the same way, you kind of you're like, no one really knows what's happening.
Yeah.
I mean, we have a good idea, but you can never. It is not a science. It's really not.
And the ability to be able to predict where everything is going. I mean, economically speaking, and it is just. I mean, the Buffett can do it. There's a few other geniuses, that I know that can do it, but it's very, very difficult to predict where you're going and where the economy's going, where the interest rates are going.
It's almost like, go ahead.
That's right. The interest rates. I mean, I'm no Buffett, but I can tell you, I have my opinion what's going to happen today.
I'm going to call you that day, and we'll see which one else is right.
I mean,
I hope I'm right, not because I want to win, but because I hope I'm right. No, I think it's interesting. The other thing too, which I love, it with the company, you guys I know you hate it because you travel constantly, but you're going to all these national events, national board meetings, all those, and you come back and you give us such a pulse of what's going on. And like we were talking about earlier, it's such a speed up. It used to we used to be a lagging market more than we are now. And now things happen so much quicker that are happening nationally. So it's we just still have a little bit of time typically where we see the trend happening in the coast, and then it's going to come here. So with you guys giving us all that information, it's so great because we can kind of give our people, our clients, a jump start on here's what you should expect coming up.
And so many people feel like information is power and they don't share it. That's one of the things that I love about you and Cheryl. Anytime you come back from these meetings, you definitely fill us in. And I thank you.
I love, he's seen me. I love spinning out. I love doing this.
It is fascinating. And the other thing too is if you wake up every morning and you like what you do. I mean, I think it's one of those things too. If you don't like what you don't do it. I mean,
go do something else.
Yeah. So being the CFO of a company and all of us, really relying on you guys and your guidance. And I mean, we need a company that can flourish so that we can flourish. So I think it's all really important. But the most important thing of all of this is don't do it.
Yeah, commercial real estate. Yeah, that's always kind of floated around in the back of my mind. And after this, I'm good with residential.
No, I think
I'll stay where I am.
I'm sure there are some people out there that would love this, and it would be great. But if you're going to do it, you need to do it the right way and get the education. And this is a very specific. You only need the license that we have to do it, but you need to go further and get the real. I think we've shown the complexity of it, and it's just, you don't want to be on the line for somebody making a deal that you don't know how to make.
Yeah.
I mean,
think of it this way. Cheryl always, when a residential agent calls Cheryl and says, I want to do commercial. And Cheryl says, are you sure you want to do that? Because have you done a deal before? No, but they see
the dollar
sign. Big deal, dollar size.
Mm-hmm. So and no one can blame them for that.
No, but if they've never done one and they don't do it right, you got to look at it as though, if I'm sitting in front of a judge and I've never done a deal before, and you've hurt somebody, then who are they going to rule in favor of? And they're going to be you.
Well, I look at it this way: I can do $1,000 in Bitcoin, or I could do 100,000. And if it really is something like crazy good, I'm going to make a whole lot more money on 100,000. But I don't understand Bitcoin, so $1,000 I can do that. Right. But like with this, I don't want to put a bunch of money. It may be a really big deal and look at the dollar signs, but like you said, what are the ramifications if it goes wrong and you've done that? So I think and just also ethics. We always talk about being a profession of ethical behavior. I ethically can't represent somebody on a lot of these things, and do it correctly.
If it goes sideways, you're toast.
I mean, multifamily, there's some of that here that would be, that's considered really residential but that's the difference between a
1 to 4 units.
Fourplex. Yeah. But when you go above that, you really are getting into a whole different thing. So,
well, Lee, this has been great. For being on the show.
Okay. So we really are. We're going to do the financial thing. And whether or not you work for Chenoweth & Cohen or not, you will really love it because it's really great, comprehensive, how to manage your money or how to look at yourself as a business and not as just a worker. And I think and again, I'm not saying this because look at me or look at Lee. It was a big changer for me in my life, because it just gives you back your power, and you can actually be in control of your future. So I'm excited for us to do that.
So I've got, what I'll do is I've got the slides and I will put them together and I'll do 4.
Yeah.
4 parts, that'd be
podcasts.
perfect.
And
Yeah.
That's great.
I'll connect with you before I head back out of town or whenever you want to do it.
Okay, that
Yeah,
sounds awesome.
yeah.
Good. You guys are going to benefit from
So
that.
we'll-
You're going to love it.
Yeah, we'll keep you informed when that's going to happen. So thank you guys so much for being with us. And again, don't do it. It's like
So
Nike.
listen to-
It's the opposite of Nike.
Yeah.
Just don't do it.
Or do it and call us.
Yeah.
Do it, yeah. Refer it. Don't do it. Refer it.
Well, thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
us, Lee.
Appreciate you
Thanks for
guys.
being on here.
Thank you for having me.
Have a great day.